Oh wow, that's the first time I was actually muted. Give me a second. Yep, check the microphone. Okay, that's kind of embarrassing. But anyways, I will just repeat it. Hello everybody, welcome to the live stream. Welcome to my live webinar on how to get the UK Global Talent Visa in 2023. If you can now hear me and see me well, let me know in the chat whether everything is fine, because I did have some issues with internet before I started this live stream. So let's see. I'm just waiting for a confirmation before I dive into content. There is silence, so I hope that it works. But yeah, if anybody can let me know, that would be great. Yep. Okay. All good. Thank you so much for confirmation. Really nice. Okay. So yeah, as I said, the live stream is about the topic of getting the UK Global Talent Visa in 2023. This is the topic that I talk a lot on my channel. And basically, if this is something that you're interested in, and if you like the webinar that I'm doing today, I do suggest you to subscribe to the channel and also hit like on this live stream. This really does help the YouTube channel to grow. So I'll appreciate your support on this. So for those who are new here, for those who haven't really visited any of my live events yet, this is me. Also, please let me know if you can see my slides. This is the first time I'm doing the screen share on StreamYard, and I hope this works. But yeah, my name is Nadia. I'm originally from Belarus, but I've kind of lived all over the place. Being an immigrant is, I think, one of the most fundamental parts of my identity, really. So I've lived in various countries such as Bulgaria, Israel, Poland, for various periods of time. I also briefly lived in the United States when I went there on work and travel. And I'm currently based in London, the UK, where I moved for work in 2021, and where I'm living right now and working as a DevRel. So in terms of professional background, again, for people who haven't really met me yet, so my background is actually from journalism. So I did work as a journalist and an editor. I also worked as a translator and a copywriter. I am a book author. Then I made a career switch into tech. So I became a self-taught programmer. I taught myself to code and been working in tech for a couple of years now. I currently work as a developer relations engineer at Intercom based in London. And I am also a career coach. So I've been helping people with their making the career switch and going into tech from other fields. And most recently, I've started also being a UK Global Talent Visa coach, which is, I think, most relevant for today's conversation. But I still wanted to make a little bit of an introduction into who I am and what I do and what other things that I can help you with besides the visa. So I received the UK Global Talent Visa as a software engineer in 2022. I went through the process myself on my own, so I didn't have any external help. I didn't have any lawyers or coaches helping me, and we can talk later whether this was the best decision or not. But that's what it is. I did it myself. I did the research, all the forums, all the Telegram chats, all the Russian Telegram chats. Like, I've been everywhere, and I applied for the visa back in June 2022, and I got endorsed actually from the first attempt, which for me, I thought that it was pretty normal. And afterwards, I just learned that this is not what always happens. And a lot of people actually face rejection the first time they apply. And very often when they apply on their own, it happens. So now I work as a UK Global Talent Visa coach for various IT professionals. So I do specialize only in people who work in tech. So for instance, if you work in art or other fields, and even though you might still be uh, eligible for the UK Global Talent Visa, unfortunately, this is not my specialty, so I won't be able to help you for now. So I've helped people who work as software engineers, designers, product managers, heads of business departments in startups, but also in big corporations. I've helped data analysts, QA engineers, startup founders, and others. So if your profession, if your tech specialty isn't really in this list, it doesn't really mean that I won't be able to help you. It just means that I haven't helped somebody with your exact skill set yet. But as far as I discovered, a lot of the knowledge that I have is very transferable between professions. So if your profession isn't on this list, you should still continue watching. This is a little bit of a snapshot about who I am, what I've been doing, kind of what is my history and where I've been active. I think that it's very important for people who either buy something from me or consume my content to understand who I am. So this is the slide that gives this little introduction. So on the left, you can see my book, which is called Crossing the Rubicon. It's basically it's a couple of things. So it's my life story, it's my memoir, and the history of my career switch. But also it's a how-to guide for everybody who wants to make the career switch and go from being non-technical to being employed and potentially building a career in big tech companies like I did. So you can find this book on Amazon and Gumroad, and I think that this is a good way to also get in touch, to get to learn me basically as a person. Then I've been published in a variety of different publications. So you can see in the middle here my publication at Intercom's blog. Then you can see my blog on Dev2. You can also see my podcast appearance on Screamba podcast, which was, according to one piece of feedback that I received, it was one of the best podcasts ever. So yeah, no biggie. You can check that out as well. There is a Polish podcast, Odiniora do Regulara. So if you speak Polish, great, you can check that out as well. I've also been featured in a series done by Logitech on inspiring women in tech, and I've given an interview there. And also on the left, you can see my channel, which you already know about because you are watching it right now. So this is a snapshot of various things that I've been involved in. This is not everything, but if you Google me, you can find a lot of stuff that I have produced. Again, if you want to get to know me a little bit better, this is a good introduction. And also, this shows the things that a lot of those things I actually was able to use in my application for the UK Global Talent Visa. So, as you know, the more public profile you have, the better, and it can make getting this visa much easier for you. So, you know, if you're preparing for this visa yourself, you can start creating a little mood board like I have here for yourself as well. So today we're going to cover different ways that exist to move to the UK for tech professionals. This will be very brief since I'm not really a specialist in all of the UK visas. I will just briefly mention the ways that exist, and then it will be up to you to do your own research. Then I'll talk about why Global Talent Visa is the best visa that you can get to move to the UK. Then we'll talk about how you can get it, and then how I can help you get it. So I really hope to make this interactive. So I see we have quite a lot of people watching this live. So I really want you to talk in the chat. So just say hi, ask questions, and network with each other. So for me, what would be interesting at this point is to learn where you're joining us from and then what you do for a living. I think that this will help me understand what audience we have here and maybe mention things that are relevant to you. So for instance, if you work as a product manager, you can say that you're a product manager joining us from, from Nigeria, for instance. And this will really help me understand what kind of people join me and also, which kind of content is most relevant. So, I can start and chat. I can say that I'm Devrel in London. Okay, so we have a senior designer. Welcome. We have Dr. Zahid from Pakistan. Hello. We have front-end developer from Istanbul with 9 years of experience. Amazing. Who else? Please don't be shy. It's very awkward for me when people don't type. Okay, we got somebody joining from India. We got a product designer. We have an EM from Nigeria. Oh my God, there was a lag, and now I have a bunch of messages. Okay, so we have a DevOps engineer. We have engineering manager, product designer. We have metaverse business analyst. That's very interesting. Spatial scientist from Nigeria. We have a senior application support engineer from Nigeria, backend and the DevOps from Nepal. We have a researcher from Ethiopia. We have DevNet engineer. We have backend developer, product manager, front-end developer, data scientist, robotic startup founder from Ghana. Oh my God, amazing data scientist from Russia, currently in Turkey. Thank you so much for sharing. This is very interesting. So we have a very diverse group of people, but luckily a lot of this information is very applicable to everybody who is joining. So if you work in tech, I think this will be very useful. We have a technical writer. This is great that you joined as well. So full stack developer, thank you so much. Keep those responses coming, and I will move on in the slides. So what I also want you to do right now is to get a piece of paper. If you don't have any paper, if you operating like a paperless household, don't get a piece of paper. Can you please just open a document on your computer where you can write? I want to make this interactive, and I will give you certain tasks or little challenges along the way so that you can participate actively in this live stream. I think that live streams or webinars, they aren't really effective or efficient if you just watch passively. I think that it's important to get involved. So open some place where you can make a note as we go along, and as we go through the content, I will ask you some questions, and I will ask you to think about some things about your career that might be helpful. Also, I'm just realizing that this is really hard, and I will probably take a break at some point just to get some tea and just a breather. So I wanted to let you know upfront that there will be like, I don't know, a few minutes break in the middle of it. Okay. Okay, we got him. Okay, we have a senior QA engineer joining and data scientist. And there is also a request for me to talk about requirements, eligibility, and required documents. Yes, this is what the presentation is about. So we'll be talking about the requirements and the documents, and you'll also get to ask me questions. So generally, you can ask questions along the way, and then towards the end, I will answer them. Also, I did share a Slido thing before where people send me a bunch of questions. I wonder if I will be able to get through all of them. This live stream might last for, I don't know, six hours, but we'll see. Cool. Okay, I assume people got paper or document. Please send a plus sign in the chat if you are ready to work on your challenges. Okay, so let's get into the content. So what kind of visas, what kind of opportunities exist for you to move to the UK as a tech professional? So the biggest and the most popular one, thank you for the pluses, I appreciate it. The biggest and the most popular one is the skilled worker visa, basically work sponsored visa. So there is also scale up visa, which is this newer kind of visa, which is better, but somewhat related. So this visa is that simple for you as an applicant. Basically, to get this visa, you need to find a job in the UK. So the way this works is that there is a list of employers in the UK, so a list of companies here who are registered with the Home Office, which is the government, and they have the license to sponsor visas for foreign workers. If you Google this, you can find a list of registered employers who can give this visa. You can check out this list, and then you can use it in various ways. You can either use this list to apply for jobs, or you can just apply for jobs and then double check that this company can sponsor your visa. It doesn't really matter. In this visa, I think the benefits are that you just need to find a job. They will pay for your sponsorship. They will pay for your visa. They will very often pay for your relocation. They will hire a lawyer who will do everything for you, so you don't have to worry about anything. Your task is just to focus on your skills and getting a job. So if you're a software engineer, you just need to go through the interviews. And with the scale-up visa, I'll admit I haven't done deep research into that, but from what I understood is that you need to get a sponsorship for a visa from a company that is considered a scale-up, and there is also a separate category, a list of companies that fulfill it. And there, basically, you will need to work for this company for 6 months, for at least 6 months, and then you don't have to work for them. But double check all the details. I'm very familiar with skilled worker because this is the visa that I had before I switched to global talent. I think that this visa is a very nice way to move to the UK. It's very easy for you, no stress involved. You just get a job and then everything is taken care of. You don't have to pay money, which I think is a benefit. So I would recommend considering it if you are very pressed for time or for money. So the problems with a skilled worker is that you are tied to your employer. So basically, the employer sponsored your visa, which means that if your relationship with the employer ends, then your visa ends as well, and you need to find another employer very soon. Usually you're given just 60 days for it. So you can see the problem here. And also you have to work on this visa. You have to be on this visa in the UK continuously for 5 years before you can get permanent residency. You can't really take breaks from work. There is also the visas for startups and for startup founders and entrepreneurs. They are startup visa and innovator visa. Again, they are different in terms of at which stage your startup is. So startup is kind of early stage when you just have a business idea. And then innovator is something where you will need to show having money in your business. So different stages of a business. So if you are an entrepreneur looking to fund a company here in the UK, this is something worth researching and considering whether this works for you or not. So from what I've heard from my clients who come to me because they want to switch to the UK Global Talent Visa, the startup visa has a lot of limitations. So for instance, you can only get it for 2 months and for 2 years. That would be an amazing visa for 2 months, for 2 years. And then you cannot really apply for permanent residency. So it doesn't lead to permanent residency. You need to switch to another visa. And a lot of entrepreneurs actually switch to global talent visa. So again, something to consider. Not the perfect visa, in my opinion, but also if you have a business idea or startup idea, this is something that you can use as well. And then the next option is the global talent visa, which is the topic of today, which is, in my humble opinion, the best UK visa, and I think objectively the best one. So I will check the questions, whether there were any questions. Okay, they're relevant. They will be answered later, I think. Yeah, cool. If you have questions about skilled worker, scale-up visa, and startup innovator, really, I'm not the best person to answer that because this is not my specialty. So if you want to research it later, you can go ahead and do that in your own time. So why is the global talent visa the best visa? I think this is the question. And I chose this slide because I wanted to emphasize freedom. And then somebody on LinkedIn pointed out that this guy really didn't want to live in the UK. And yes, true, but still, I decided to leave it in. So freedom, I think, is the biggest value when it comes to this visa, right? So with the global talent visa, you don't really need a job offer, right? So if you remember the skilled worker visa, you have to get the job offer to come here. If you don't have a job offer, you can't come here. For global talent visa, you don't need to find a job beforehand, which I think makes it very easy. And the process is not easy, but I think it removes part of the stress from people. So a lot of people that I talk to, they don't really have a job in the UK. They get the visa first, they come to the UK and they search for a job later, which I think puts you in a much better position because you don't need to focus on just the companies where they can sponsor your visa. You can basically imagine you can treat your job search in this way that you just look for a job where you want to work. Imagine, because if you need a sponsorship, you are looking for companies where you want to work that can also sponsor your visa, which means that a lot of startups, they won't be really eligible here because they can't sponsor visas. In global talent visa, you don't need a job offer because you basically sponsor your own visa, right? So you are your own sponsor. So it means that you can come here without a job. You can stay here without a job. You can take a break from employment. So this makes it really flexible and easy for you as an immigrant. So as I said, you're your own sponsor, which I think is pretty incredible. And people who have been on the skilled worker visa, they really struggle understanding like how great it is. And myself, I made the switch from skilled worker to global talent. It's such an amazing feeling, just this feeling of freedom and being liberated from the constraints of the skilled worker visa. I think it's incredible, and it's just very hard to describe in words, but it does make a difference. So you can basically do whatever you want. Again, if you are currently located in the country where you are a citizen or you have a permanent residency, imagine you can come to the UK and you can do whatever you want. So you can have a business, you can go study, you can work for somebody, or very importantly, for a lot of my clients, actually, they say that it's so great that you can just do nothing. So, which kind of shows you how burned out everybody is at this point, that people would seriously consider this a big advantage in terms of visas, right? So it gives you so much flexibility. It also gives you a path to permanent residency and a British passport, and how quickly you will be able to get it. It depends on the path that you take. So it's either, the visa is given either for people usually get this visa for either 3 years or 5 years, depending on which route they take, and this will be covered later. But basically, I think the most important thing is that you can get, in certain cases, you can get your permanent residency in the UK in just 3 years, which is incredible. It's very, very quick compared to a lot of countries. And as an immigration geek, I do know quite a lot about various countries, in Europe especially. If you have heard anything about the United States immigration system and just how insane it is, you can appreciate how fast this is, but also it's very straightforward. So the immigration system in the UK, I think it works very well because it's very easy to understand. There are specific requirements that you need to fulfill, and then you get whatever was promised to you, right? So, for instance, for permanent residency, you need to, for instance, you got the global talent visa. You need to live here and work here and pay taxes here, basically be a tax resident in the UK for 3 years, right? So you can travel, obviously, but your base should be here. And then you can apply for the permanent residency. And if you submit the necessary documents, you can get it. And then, in a couple of years, depending again on the route, you can apply for the British passport. It's very straightforward. There are rules in place. You can read them beforehand, and you can just prepare, basically, which I think is incredible, given that the British passport is still, if you look at the ratings of passports, it's still pretty high up there. And also, you don't need to know English, and you don't need a proof of funds to get this visa. Again, if you're watching this, I assume you understand English. Otherwise, I don't know what's happening. But you don't need to know English technically to get this visa. You can just hire somebody to prepare your documents for you, and you will get endorsed. Then I think it's a benefit, because a lot of people get stressed out when taking the various language tests, right? And I think that this is also a benefit. You don't need to worry about taking an IELTS or whatever test you want to take. And then there is the proof of funds. So proof of funds is that it means that you don't need to show that you have money in your bank account, which again is important for people in various locations around the world as well. So the question that might be on your mind is, can you get it? So I think this is a great question, and I will actually check the chat. I wish I had moderators for this. I will see whether there was anything relevant for today. I mean, for this moment. Okay, there is a bunch of questions about criteria, and yeah, I will be talking about criteria later. But let me know in the chat whether you were convinced that the global talent visa is the best visa. So the answer to the question whether you can get it is, I can answer it as a programmer. It depends. Basically, there are kind of different ways to think about it, but whichever way you go here, I would highly recommend that you treat the Tech Nation Visa Guide as the source of truth. This is the official guidance of Tech Nation, which is the body that endorses people for this visa, which is the place where you should go whenever you have any doubts or concerns. Anything that you hear on my live stream, on other videos that I post, or anything else that you see online, you should always double check that it still matches this guide. So the information that I'm sharing today is up to date, and it's still in line with this guide, but it's 10th of November, 10th of January 2023, right? So if you're watching this recording in the future, you should definitely check whether this guide is still true or not. And they have a change log down the bottom, so just bookmark this page, you will use it a lot. They have a change log in down the bottom of the page where you can see when was the last time this changed, so you can see whether anything changed since you last checked this guide out, which I do quite a lot. Okay, I see that people are convinced that this is the best visa for them. Yes, it's 1,000 times better than tier 2 visa. Oh my god. I agree. Like a million times better. We can talk later about like how my life changed since I switched the visa. Oh, we see that somebody got an endorsement just today with the Arts Council. Yeah, amazing. Congrats. Congrats on the endorsement. So, okay. So when it comes to who can get this visa, we can think of various kinds of people. So we can think of technical candidates and then business candidates, right? So I have two slides on that. So technical candidates, you can see all the buzzwords here, right? You can see front end, back end, hardware, engineers, ML experts, cybersecurity, blah, blah, blah. You can see designers there. You can see augmented reality developers. So if you work in tech, and now I want you to start thinking of your own background and maybe your current job, or maybe kind of the main job that you have been doing during the last 5 years, and try to, if you're a technical candidate, for instance, try to think where your skill set falls here. So if you don't see your exact specialty in this list, it doesn't mean that you aren't eligible. It just means that the tech world moves so quickly that technician doesn't really, this list is not comprehensive, right? So it's not all the jobs that you can do. It's just an idea, right, of the jobs that you can take. So this is business candidates. Again, here various buzzwords, but basically you can think of, you working in a tech company, a product company, and driving the business growth of the company. So this can be sales, solution sales. This can be, for instance, product managers are, I think, a popular kind of category of people, and various other kind of people. So hopefully you had a time to browse through this. I know it's not very easy to read, but basically anything related to business would be business skills. So this is your task, your first task. Please write down your main business or your main technical skill, and please share in the chat with others so that we can see. Okay, so for me, when I applied for the visa, I chose software engineer, so developing um, software applications. So I'm curious to hear what you will choose. Okay, so we have AI engineer, we have software engineer, front end, product design, content marketing. Yeah, so content marketing is a business skill. Cool. Backend DevOps. Awesome. Okay, moving on. These are the kind of people, kind of specialties that aren't really eligible. I think here you can read through that again on the Technation guide. I think the biggest one here is the word consultancy and outsourcing. This is something that I want to focus on in the next slide. So I actually made a video about the product versus consultancy. So if you're watching this, maybe somebody can help me actually, since I don't have moderators. Maybe somebody can find this video on my channel. You can find it by searching for the word consultancy, and maybe you can send it in the chat so that others can find it and watch it later. But yeah, so basically, if you aren't sure whether your current job or maybe the majority of your jobs were in product or consultancy, I think the easy way to think about it is to ask yourself this question: So your company is probably building some digital products, some software, right? Or hardware or whatever. But let's focus on software since this is, I think, most popular case. So you have the company building software, and maybe you're a programmer and you're building software. And also, please let me know in the chat whether this makes sense, because this is where people really struggle, and whether you are able to understand it. So what happens to this software once it's done, once it's ready? So if your company is selling this software to the clients, to the end users, either as a subscription or as you know whatever, as a product to your direct clients, then we can think about it as a product-led company in the definition of stagnation. However, if your company is building a product for another company, and then that company owns that product and owns the rights to this product, and then this company, the second company, sells it to their clients, then you can think about it as consultancy or outsource. So this is the more or less the definition here. And I had this question. Okay, I didn't have this question, but basically, let me know in the chat whether the company where you work is product or consultancy, or if you are not sure, you can also let us know. Okay, there is a comment that my slide text is not visible. Can you confirm that it's really visible? Okay, we have more people working in product managers. We have mobile app developers. Really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I see people coming in from product, product Apple, consultancy. Yeah, so what is my guidance on this distinction? So I think that a lot of coaches are very categorical when it comes to consultancies, and they say that this is not eligible. So if you're a consultant, you can never get this visa. I don't have this hardline approach to this. So yes, if you look at Technation Guide, you will see that consultants aren't eligible. But at the same time, as I mentioned, I'm in various Telegram chats where you would read like the most bizarre things and the most bizarre cases. So there, I've seen people refer to other people getting endorsed for this visa, even though they had consultancy experience or they had experience working for agencies and design agencies. So uh, what it means is that either those people are lying and just spreading rumors, or most likely it means that there is a way to actually shape your experience in your documents to show that you actually work with product, that your work is product focused, and present the evidence in this way. So not really focusing on clients that you're selling this to, but focusing on the product itself. So full disclosure, for me, I currently don't work with cases like this, not because I think that it's hopeless, but because I don't have enough experience yet. So, if you are in this situation, I would advise you to consult companies that have, larger pool of candidates and larger kind of pool of cases that they have covered. If you need guidance, if you are a consultant, I really wouldn't recommend you to try to apply on your own. I think that the risk is very high, and I've seen rejections for people that come in because they are consultants. So be careful here. Don't give up. Investigate. Talk to various coaches and lawyers in the space, and maybe you will be able to find somebody who will be able to help you. Okay, we have questions about visa sponsorship. So I think that if somebody can help you in the chat, then yes, I think it would be great. But generally, this is not the purpose of the live stream. And also, I am not a specialist in skilled worker visas. And despite what some people think, for some reason, I am not really able to sponsor a visa myself or bring anybody to the UK. I mean, yet. Okay, so I see that a lot of people in the chat are product, some are consultancy, so somebody is product or consultancy. So if we determine that you work in product, you might think that, okay, that's it, I'm ready to go. Unfortunately, that's not enough. So the consultancy part is kind of the formal requirement. So it's the point where you can decide whether you pass the formal requirements or not, and whether this will be easy for you to get or not, but still you need to meet their criteria, and the criteria are very well defined on the Tech Nation guide that I referred to before. Before we go into the criteria, I wanted to briefly touch on promise versus talent. So, when it comes to promise or talent, these are the two main routes for visa applications for the UK Global Talent Visa. So, when you apply for the visa, for the endorsement, you will choose either you're going for promise or for talent. The distinction here is that promise is for people who are earlier on in their career, typically fewer than 5 years in this particular space. And then talent is for people who have more than 5 years of experience, and people who are applying for talent, they would typically be in more senior positions. And somebody applying for promise, this would be somebody who is in more like mid-level positions, right, kind of closer to the junior side. This is not very strict requirement, so it can go, sometimes if somebody has very few years of experience, but maybe they have already achieved so much, they would still be able to qualify for talent. And I have seen cases like this, but it doesn't really work the other way. So, for instance, if you have been in this industry for 25 years and you apply for promise, then you won't be able to get it because it just looks weird, since promise is for people who are kind of showing potential to become a leader in the space, right? So here, I think it's very subjective. If you have questions about that, kind of we can work individually and we can talk later, kind of one-on-one, whether which route is better for you. This is something that I discuss with all of my clients because this is very often a point where people are confused. So getting to know your experience, I think, will help me to give very good advice. It's not really possible to do this in a live stream where I don't really know your experience, but this is more or less the benchmark. I think that this is mostly relevant for people who are early in their career and they aren't sure whether they should apply for promise or talent. So the difference between those routes is that it's the same visa, right? So your residence permit will say the same thing. The only difference is that for talent, you can get the permanent residence in 3 years, and for promise, you will need to live here and work here for at least 5 years to get this permanent residency. That's about it. So no other differences, but it is easier to get promise, of course, because the requirements are a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to show such a big track record of success and achievements, which makes sense because if you are only starting out in the field of tech, then it makes sense that you won't really have that many achievements. Okay, so now the second interactive task. Please let us know in the chat whether you are applying for promise or talent, because I assume that people who are here are interested in applying for this visa. Okay, we had a question that is, I think, relevant, and maybe I can answer it immediately about the product and consultancy. So it does apply to everybody. So yeah, if you're a software engineer working in consultancies, then this experience, as I said, it's like I don't say that it's end of the world, because I generally, my approach is very flexible, and I'm very careful when I say no, that something is not possible. But generally, it applies to all kinds of careers and all kinds of specialties. Okay, so we have people applying for talent, promise, talent. Okay, what is the age limit? There is no age limit. So, there is no age limit, but I think that you need to think of not your age, but whether this makes sense, what you're doing, right? So, for instance, if you are 19 and you just started working in tech, then if you apply for talent, then it might be a bit weird, or it might be hard to make this case. But also, if you are, I don't know, 50 and you have been in tech for 30 years, if you apply for promise, then again, it's a bit bizarre. Okay, so we've got most people applying for talent, I think. When it comes to the stream being available to watch later, yes. So if you need to drop off, this will probably be a very long chat tonight. So if you need to drop off, I understand. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you don't lose access to it and you don't lose the upcoming live streams. But yeah, this will be recorded on my channel. So also, if you left your email beforehand, you can still leave it in the description box. I will send you a link to it directly, so you can do that as well. Okay, so let's go to the mandatory criteria. So, which is, as you can imagine, mandatory. It means that you have to meet it, right? So, mandatory criteria means that you need to demonstrate how you have been recognized as a leader or an emerging leader in the digital tech space in the last 5 years, right? So, emergent is the word that applies for promise, so that you are showing potential to be a leader. And a leader basically means that you have already established yourself as a leader. I think that's pretty straightforward. Here, make sure that you remember that this is about digital tech. So, if you are a career switcher like I am, for instance, your experience in your previous field, it's not really relevant, right? So if you had a very successful career in medicine, for instance, and now you're switching to becoming a software engineer, then you should focus on your leadership in the field of tech, not really medicine, right? Then the last 5 years is very important. This is something that a lot of my clients really struggle with, especially if they had a very intense career maybe 10 years ago, and the last 5 years have been quiet, and maybe they weren't really uh, doing a lot of the things that you kind of need to have for the visa. So when you think about your achievements from the next slide that I can just open now, focus on the things that have happened in the last 5 years and your biggest achievements in tech from the last 5 years, right? So mandatory criteria is all about leadership. How are you a leader in tech? So how are you a leader in your particular space? So we had people from front end engineers. So like, how are you a leader in front end engineering in your country, for instance, or internationally? It doesn't really matter. So you need to show that you led the growth of a product company, a team, a product. So this is very often can be confirmed by reference letters for all kinds of candidates, right? So you can have a reference letter that talks about how your code, your business skills, and basically whatever you do contributed to the growth of a company. And this has to be within the context of a product company. So and ideally, your application should be about product companies, which is, I think, the safest way to go with this visa. If you are a technical candidate, you can have code snippets that show your contributions. And for all candidates, there can be publications about your work, right? So publications and media. This criteria can also be supported by documents that show that you led a growth of a tech-focused NGO. So, for instance, if you volunteer for an organization that is focused on advancing the field of tech, so an organization where I'm a lead volunteer is Women Who Code. So, for instance, an organization like this, and if you can submit proof that you were contributing to the growth of this organization, then again, this can be used to support this criteria. Media mentions as well. For technical candidates, open source is a good way to support this criteria, but you need to show how this shows your leadership. So basically, maybe you can get a reference letter again from somebody who is a big expert in open source, who can talk about why your open source contributions were so important for the industry. You can also use awards, and this can be awards that basically any kind of award. It can't be an internal award. So if you got like the best employee of the year award, this isn't eligible, right? So when you're thinking awards, and now, as I go through the documents, I want you to start thinking really deeply about your own career over the last 5 years and whether you have any of those things, right? So just start thinking about it and start writing them down on your piece of paper or in your document. So Awards, I think, are one of the kind of easiest ways to support leadership criteria, because basically what an award means is that um, somebody who is outside yourself supported you as a leader, right? Somebody recognized you as a leader, which makes it very easy for technician to recognize you as a leader as well. Hackathons, I think, is a very good way to support your mandatory criteria, relevant for all kinds of candidates. So this is something that I very often recommend to my clients. If your application is a little bit weak, you should just go and participate in a hackathon. This is always a good idea. Public speaking is an amazing way to support this criteria. Again, it's kind of a quick win that I recommend to my clients. So you need to speak at high profile events in your industry or specialist events for your field. So you can see this word specialist events. I think it gives you quite a lot of flexibility in terms of what this event is. And ultimately, it's up to you to prove that your speech was made at a specialist event for your field. Then you can also use media mentions in industry publications. So these can be things that are about you, right? So either an article about your story, uh, or maybe somebody kind of you gave an interview somewhere, on YouTube, in a podcast, in some fancy newspaper, but really it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be just an online blog. If you remember the slide in the beginning of my presentation about the things that I have done, so a lot of those screenshots were actually me being interviewed on a podcast, me being featured in a blog or something like that. So this is something that you can actually use to support your mandatory criteria. And big secret, if you don't have those things right now, you can just go out there and you can get somebody to interview you. And if you're interested, let me know in the comments whether you kind of would like to learn more about how this can be done. But basically, this is just an idea of what you can use here. Then various ways to support thought leadership here. So this can be articles that you write and publish. This can be books. So for instance, I had a book which I used as one of my evidence pieces as well. So basically, anywhere where you share your expert knowledge and opinions as an expert, as a leader, right? So, but it's important that there is pre-moderation. So if you read the guide, you will see that technician doesn't really like um, Medium articles and LinkedIn articles, which is because there is no pre-moderation. You can just post this yourself. So you can post anything yourself. So this doesn't really prove leadership. So ideally, you should have publications in industry blogs. So there again, on one of my first slides, you can remember that I had an article published on Intercom blog, which is an industry kind of a big blog in the industry, which again shows pre-moderation and kind of shows some recognition of leadership. Um, Also, having said that, if you have a blog that is your own, that is popular, that people are reading, you should still submit it. So I think that you should steer clear of Medium and LinkedIn. But if you have your own standalone blog where you share thoughts about tech or tech related issues, then you should submit it as well. A lot of people that I consult, they do that and it works very well for them as well. So again, the next one is being a judge on the panel. Basically, anywhere where you judge the work of others, this is something that shows you being recognized as a leader. And then the last one is having high salary and having equity as an employee of the company. I kind of mark it as the last one because I think it's the weakest document that you can have. It's the one that everybody submits pretty much. So we work in tech and most of us are paid very well. So this is a document that you can submit pretty easily. It's just, you need how to format it correctly, but basically it's just out there, right? Okay, so this is a task for you. This is what I was priming you for. Uh, Write down what of those evidences you currently have and what you can share. What you can share with Technation when you apply for the mandatory criteria, and share in the chat so that we can see all the wonderful things that you have accomplished. I can show the list again. Okay, I see some answers. Academic publications. Yep, it's good. Academic publications also go to support one of the optional criteria, which I think is a little bit different, and I'll cover later. Okay, everybody's very shy, or I have a lag. Again, crazy. Um, so if you have any publications, if you have any kind of open source, if you have hackathons, awards, public speaking, media publications, so this is very much about your external profile, right? So um, another exercise that you can do is just Google your name in in whatever language that you speak, in English if it's relevant, and see what comes up, right? So you can be surprised to find some mentions of you in publications where you had no idea somebody quoted you. And this has happened to recently with my client, actually, where they found that they were interviewed somewhere, and I mean they gave a quote somewhere like 4 years ago and forgot about it, but this is all can be used here. So okay, we have great examples here. So, thank you for sharing. So, we had the academic publications, we had public speaking on meetups and teaching software engineering at HSE. This is excellent. This is excellent examples. Teaching can also go to, all of those things can also go to another criteria that we'll cover. Okay, so we have this one. Got invited by the government of Spain to speak on an international panel on the topic of robotics and artificial intelligence for agricultural purposes. So this is amazing. This shows recognition, definitely. Um, Academic publications and mentorship, I guess. Public speaking on meetups. This is great. I led an NGO tech focused growth by building a sellable product. This is amazing. And also, we have one from Victor who won a hackathon. This is great. I'm sure that you will be able to come up with more achievements here and more ideas. I shared some of my own that I used in my application. Then you can see a lot of examples here in the chat. Also, this is going live, but also they will be recorded. And then I assume people will be leaving comments while they watch it as a recording. So you can bookmark this video and go back and kind of see what ideas people share on this. But when it comes to hackathons, for instance, it doesn't really necessary to win a hackathon. If you were maybe a semi-finalist, if you were shortlisted for an award, I think this can work as well. So any kind of things that show leadership, and if you are struggling understanding whether this piece of evidence really goes towards leadership or not, then just ask yourself whether this shows recognition, whether somebody else was involved in giving this recognition to you or not. Okay, so moving on to the next criteria, to the first optional criteria. And when it comes to optional criteria, there are four. You only need to choose two, and you need to meet two criteria. So don't worry about all of them. When you listen to this, don't worry if if something doesn't apply to you. It's not a big deal. And again, when you listen to this, we can kind of make this quicker. If you hear me say something that sounds relevant to you, also make sure that you share it in chat and also make a note for yourself. So this will kind of achieve two purposes. This will, first of all, help you brainstorm and prepare for your application, because what you're doing right now is actually preparing for your application that you will submit. And also, this will give other people ideas on what else they can use in their application. And what I'm trying to do with this webinar is actually help people unblock themselves and have an efficient brainstorming session with themselves and kind of here with all of us, because this is a supportive community where people will share things with each other, and we are all kind of interested in the same thing. So you are interested in getting the visa, I'm interested in helping others get the visa, so I do encourage you to share your thoughts on this. So when you think about innovation here, you do need to focus on innovation, right? So what is innovation? Technician isn't really defining it very well. So innovation is something that is new, something that is unique, right? So if you think of the projects that you delivered in your jobs or outside of your work as well, so why is this innovative, right? Why is this unique? How does it compare against the industry? and what is your specific role in the innovation. So you need to think of what you did there to produce this innovation. So once you understand, once you have an idea of what is innovation, then you need to show proof of the innovation in the market. So you need to prove that your company, for instance, is making money, that it's making revenue, that there is, capital raise and things like that. You can also use media mentions in the industry that talk about your product being innovative. Then you can also use reference letters from industry leaders that talk about your product being new. You can also use innovation grants and awards. In some cases, you can use R&D tax breaks if they are specifically given for um, innovation, right? So there are specific government grants, for instance, here in the UK that are called innovation grants, right? Then for technical candidates, you can also use code on GitHub, or you can use other artifacts that show that you worked on this innovative product. So basically, think of it this way. You first need to understand what is innovative about your work, and then you need to understand how can you prove it. And you can prove it with letters of recommendation, with artifacts, and screenshots, basically. And also you can use patents. I think it's kind of a boring example because almost nobody will have patents. So I'll just give it here for full information, but don't worry if you don't have it. And again, as before, please let us know whether you have any innovation related contributions and whether you can think of anything right now. I think this is a hard criteria to meet, and I think a lot of people want to really have it. But if you think of something, let us know, and I will move on for now. The second optional criteria is being recognized for your work outside your immediate occupation that advances the field of digital tech. I think it's easiest to think of this if you look at examples. So think of your life and your work. So you have your job. Are you doing anything else related to tech outside of your work in tech, right? So you can use things like open source contributions. You can use your contributions to Stack Overflow. For instance, if you are sharing information and knowledge there, then if you are organizing and moderating communities related to technical topics, if you are advising startups, but it's important that you are not just advising one startup and you don't use one thing as proof of your contributions, because very often Tech Nation might see this as consulting and it's not really applicable. Then you can also use teaching that you do in various formats. It can be online, offline. So we had example in the chat about teaching at the university, I think. So this is all great, but it has to be all of this has to be volunteering, right? So you need to understand that this should be just kind of done voluntarily outside of your job. Then if you're a member of professional clubs that advance the field, so associations for programmers, designers, and whoever else, then also your public talks and your opinion pieces on your specialty also count towards that. If you volunteer for tech causes, this is great as well. So for instance, if you volunteer at a technical conference, then I think this is a good example as well. And while I talk about mentoring, can you let us know in the chat as well whether you have any of those things, whether you have done them, whether you will be able to submit them or not? So when it comes to mentoring, it's a difficult one because it's becoming much harder to prove it and to get endorsed for the visa just kind of on the basis of mentorship. So mentorship has to be done within an organized program with selection criteria for mentors, and it has to have a curriculum, and it has to be pretty formal. So if you just mentor somebody once, it's not really enough for this. Also, if you do those things during your work hours, then it's not applicable because they might say that you are being paid, right, to do that. So that's not really what they're looking for. Okay, we got some examples for innovation. I designed and developed an outdoor-based navigation robot for agricultural purposes. This uses low-cost sensors compared to what exists and work efficiently. So this is great. This fulfills. I think this is a good candidate for fulfilling the innovation criteria. Also, you talk about costs. This is something that can. This aspect can be used to fulfill the third optional criteria that will be on the next slide. And also we had another answer from Emmanuel that he's a co-lead for security user group. Come on, people, don't be shy. Let us know what else you have been doing for the community. This can be really anything, anything that you do that advances the field of tech. If you do those things, I think that meeting this criteria should be straightforward. Again, if you are not really doing them yet, you can start doing them in advance of applying for the visa, and you can build a stronger profile. This is something that I often tell people, that it might be a good excuse to do something that you've always wanted to do but never had the time or the push to do. So, let this be your push to start mentoring and giving back to the community. Okay, so the next one is third criteria is basically about your contributions to the field as a founder, an executive, or an employee of a product-led digital company. So this is kind of a mouthful, and it's very hard to read, I think, for a lot of people. But um, basically, here you just need to show your contributions to the growth of a company. So they can be business contributions, they can be technical contributions, right? So if you are a business candidate, then you will need to submit some documents that show your business impact and numbers. So think of this like this. So think of what happened. What was the company like before you joined or before you started this project? What was the state of this product before you came in? And then what was it after? And when you think about it, I think that this becomes very clear whether there was a significant change thanks to you or not. The word significant is very loaded. It can make you feel that you are insignificant and you are unworthy of the visa, but it is very subjective, right? So anything it's up to you to explain why this is a significant change, right? So as a business applicant, you can show how your work had an influence on the revenue, on users' growth, how your work helped the company to save time or money, how it helped the company to generate leads, how it increased the size of the deal, and things like that. You can also use reference letters that kind of support the same criteria as well. They would be different from the main letters of recommendation that I will cover later. If you are a technical candidate, you also need to show artifacts and proof of you doing the contribution, right? So it's not enough just to say that you did it. You need to prove that you were actually working on it. So for instance, if you are a designer, I know that we have designers watching. So if you're a designer, maybe you will have a reference letter talking about your designs that help the company make a lot of money. But then you will also have to submit your proof that you actually did this product design. So this can be screenshots of product designs that clearly show your name and your contribution. Again, my usual exercise. I think people are, I don't know, let me know if you are tired or what's happening, because I think there are fewer answers in the chat now. Yeah, just, I'm kind of tired as well, but I will appreciate support and kind of input. So whether you can think of ideas how to support this criteria and whether this criteria, for instance, makes sense. Because for me, it's as a coach, I'm always looking for ways to explain things better, right? So if this criteria isn't clear, maybe I can give more details and context on that. So while you're thinking about it, I'll cover the last criteria, which I think is something that not that many people will be able to fulfill. I think that most candidates are choosing different criteria because they're easier to meet, or maybe this criteria is just impossible. So this is basically about you making contributions to the field of tech by making research, academic research related to tech. So this can be papers published in peer-reviewed journals. This can be a presentation at a peer-reviewed conference. This can be an award that you got for academic work, and this can be a reference letter from an academic expert. So anything related to academics, I think, is just something that you can use here. I'm not sure how many people we have here today who have an academic background. So again, let me know in the chat whether you have documents like this and whether you will be choosing this criteria at all. So let us know. And yeah, just to recap. So we have We have innovation, so innovative work. We have things that you do outside of tech, so community work. Then we have contributions that you do as an employee or as a founder. And again, this is business and technical as well. And then we have academics, right? So you have four criteria. As I said, you need to meet only two. I would actually be curious to hear whether, as you are watching this, whether you already have an idea of which criteria fit you better and what makes more sense for you in your specific situation. So, for a lot of people, this is kind of an elimination process, right? So, if you're looking at the criteria, you can think, okay, so do I have academics? And like for me, it was like, okay, I don't have academics, right? And then you can go through them and you can ask yourself, okay, do I have innovative work? Um, do I have innovative work, or maybe do I have contributions that I've done outside of work or kind of inside work? I think that the optional criteria three is something that most people choose because if you work somewhere, you will most likely have contributed to the growth of this business. Because otherwise, it's I don't know, strange that you work somewhere and you have no impact on the company. I think that it's very hard to believe. So yeah, so okay, we have an answer from Zahid that I have publications in peer-reviewed journals. Yeah, so the academic criteria might be eligible for you, but um, yeah. So here, when it comes to criteria, I usually I help my clients choose the criteria on the strategy session, and I will be talking about kind of the services that I offer a bit later, where I can talk in more detail. But yeah, if you struggle choosing the criteria, I do recommend you reach out to either kind of somebody who went through the process, or a coach, or a lawyer, or somebody who can help you. So the next big part of the application is actually getting letters of recommendation from experts in the field of tech. I think I had a bunch of questions about letters of recommendation. So basically, you need to find people in your network who know your work, who have detailed knowledge of your work for at least 18, not 18, 12 months, so a year. This is an updated guidance from Technation that came in force only in November. So when you're thinking of people who can vouch for you, then you need to think of people who have interacted with you for at least a year, because you will need to prove and you will need to explain how this person knows you and your work for at least 12 months. So what do I mean by experts? So experts are, it's I think it's a pretty vague term. So experts are somebody who is recognized as a leader in the field of digital technology. So basically, this is somebody who usually has leading positions in companies. So it doesn't have to be a CEO or a CTO, and this is a myth, that if you don't have access to a CEO of a company, then you can't get the visa. It's not true. So, for instance, if you work in a big company, you can try to get as far as kind of high up the chain of command from you as possible. But also, this person who is writing your letter, who is signing your letter, they need to be aware of your work, right? So you can't really go to a CEO of a huge corporation who has never seen you, who has no idea who you are. This won't really be, what needs to happen here. And here, I want you to start thinking of the experts that you might be able to ask for letters of recommendation. Like ideally, you shouldn't write their names in the chat, but just make a note for yourself. Which people come to mind? They should be people that you ideally have a good relationship with. Maybe you haven't spoken to them in a few years. I know it feels weird to write to them, but it's fine. Like I've done it, and a lot of people have done it. I mean, we all have to do it, so it's no big deal really. But just think of people who are experts, who can talk about your work, whom you know. In terms of being an expert, it really helps if they have a public profile. Um, so if you Google your expert, and this is something that I recommend, just Google them and find out whether they have done any kind of activities related to promoting the field of tech, whether they have publications, whether they have public speaking and things like that. So very often they would be an opinion leader, and ideally they should be. So if you are choosing the best expert, just think of somebody who is noticeable in the public field. Uh, can you let me know in the chat whether this is helpful in terms of explaining who these people are, and whether this gives you an idea of who you can ask? Because for me, again, I'm sitting here alone and talking to the green dot on my laptop, and I'm not really sure. And this is, I know, honestly difficult for me psychologically, because I'm not really hearing whether what I'm talking about makes sense, whether this is helpful, and whether this gives you an idea of who you can ask for help and for letters of recommendation. So just let me know, and also start thinking of the expert that you can ask for help. Okay. Okay, it's clear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me know. There was another question: should these experts be from different companies? So, in the past, it was required that the experts are from 3 different companies. But right now, there is no expectation like this, so they can be, from kind of the current job. But I would, so the question is, I can bring it up, since you own a tech lead from your current job. So yes, in theory, yes, I would try to maybe have letters. I would still try to have people from different organizations, like ideally. If you can't, then this is fine as well. But maybe you can, kind of think about it and find other people that you can ask. But basically, um, it's fine. If they are leaders, if they are noticeable in the space, this can work as well. Okay. I know people who can be experts. Great. Do they have tech experts? Yes, this is a tech visa, so they have to be tech experts. So you can't really ask somebody who is an artist to write you a letter of recommendation if you are a DevOps engineer. I mean, you can, but this won't work. Um, Similar question: could they be from your own company? Yes, but I would try to have people from various companies. Maybe like somebody, to show you as an wide ranging expert, basically. So tech leaders without public presence aren't recommended to use as ref. So yes, they aren't recommended, but also uh, there are things that are recommended, and then there are things that happen in real life. So I can just what I can like I can't share a lot, but what I can share is that it's possible to get a visa endorsed, even if your expert isn't really uh, noticeable online. So, for instance, if they have leadership positions, so if they are a leader in companies where they work, but they don't do anything outside of work, this letter can still work if the letter is drawn itself. So, kind of, I think it's important to be open minded and not be very rigid in how you think about it. So, there are things that are ideal, and then there are things that are possible. So sometimes with my clients, what happens is that maybe like they have some expert that are public, and then they have an expert who's great, but they can't really find anybody who is giving public talks and like volunteering everywhere. And then what do we do, right? We write the best possible letter, and then we apply. Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad that this is helping. Okay, so do I need to know them through work? Can it be someone who I met from a tech community over a year ago? So this is a good question. So in the past, before this new update, this was possible. You could just use somebody who maybe worked with you on a hackathon, or maybe who invited you to speak at a conference, and anything like that. This could work actually. Right now, it's a little bit more challenging, because imagine so you mentioned that you have this person that you met them through a community a year ago, and they have to explain how they know your work in detail. If you can come up with a description of this that is true and kind of makes sense, then yes, you can use them. But this guidance is very new, so there is very little information about how this is enforced right now, right? So I haven't really seen rejections based on the fact that the expert didn't really know the person well enough or for a long enough time or anything like that. So the rejections haven't really come through. At least I haven't seen them. So for me, like the guidance that I give right now is to try to find people that you worked with, because this is 100% guaranteed that this will work. If you can't really find anybody like this, you can find somebody from the community, but who knows your work, who knows what you're doing for the community, who knows your engineering contribution. So this can work as well. So is a PhD design professor good for this recommendation? So it really depends on what is a PhD design professor. You mean the professor in the field of design? So um, I think that, yeah, people actually use a lot of the time people use professors for their recommendation letters. So if they're a specialist in tech, if they're a recognized leader, then this can work as well. Uh, Program manager in digital is acceptable position for endorsement. This is really hard to say. It's again like I'm not able to say whether your exact person will be a good expert. This is something that again can be done kind of on a one-on-one basis, right? So I can say the answer here is it depends. And it's not because I don't want to share information, because clearly I'm sharing a lot of information here. It's just because it's impossible to answer. So we would need to look at this person and their profile, right? So program manager, it can be very different things. So it can be like somebody who is an established leader. It can be somebody who just became a program manager and who didn't achieve anything yet. So it depends, really. Sorry for this non-answer, but that's the honest answer here. Okay, then you will need to have your CV prepared, and CV is all about your achievements and work. And again, if you can share your biggest professional achievement in chat, I think this will be really lovely. This will help others get inspired. So anything that you're really proud of in your career. So this can be anything. So for instance, like for me, I think one of my kind of achievements that I'm very proud of is that I was actually able to teach myself to code and become a programmer, and since then worked in big companies where I've contributed to impactful engineering projects, right? So when writing down these achievements, I would just be focusing on each of my jobs and what I did there, the projects that I shipped that brought value to customers. So your CV that you prepare for this application, it's one of the required documents, right? So the CV that you prepare, it shouldn't be the regular CV that you use. It should be something that you create or adapt for this application. So just imagine that, just remember that this is not a job application. This is a visa application, right? So just focus on that. And I think this will be helpful and put you kind of on the right footing here. If anybody is willing to share, then I think this will be lovely and inspire others. Then you will also need to write a personal statement, which is, again, go to Tech Nation Visa website. They will give you all the guidance, all the bullet points that you need to cover in your personal statement. But here I will just say that personal statement is very much about your future, about your goals. Why do you need this visa? What you plan to do with it once you get endorsed, and what your plans for the contributions in the UK are. If you can share kind of your main reason for wanting to come to the UK, I think I'll be very curious to learn this. So if you are not in the UK yet, can you please share why do you want to come here at all? So why have you decided to attend this webinar, and what is your motivation here? All right, some responses are coming through. So, in terms of the timeline and the process here, the process of getting the visa is 2 stages. So, there is the endorsement stage where you gather all the documents that we now discussed. You apply on TechNation website, you get the endorsement, hopefully, and then you go to stage 2, which is the stage where you actually apply for the visa itself, which is the stage where you go through the biometrics. So you kind of have your fingerprints taken and all of that, and you either get a new visa or you switch from your old visa to this visa. Let me know if you have any questions on the timelines here. So basically, you have to wait for 8 weeks for the endorsement. And then the time that it takes you to get the visa itself, it depends on your on your passport, on where you are, on many other aspects of it. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about the top 5 mistakes that can cost you the visa and briefly go through them. Okay, so these are the mistakes that I've seen people make, and I really want to prevent you from making them too. So number one mistake is probably choosing the wrong criteria. So we talked about the criteria. Also, like, I'm curious to hear whether you understand the criteria now, whether you feel that you understand them better, whether you have decided which criteria you are trying to meet. So do let me know in the comments. This will really help me define my explanations better. So this is important for me. So if you choose the wrong criteria and you submit the documents for the wrong criteria, you might get rejected because your documents need to be specific for a criteria. So sometimes people do this, make this mistake of thinking that, hey, I can just upload documents on the website and they will understand what is happening. This isn't a good approach, actually. So you do need to understand that your criteria, they come first, and your documents meet the criteria. And this is what we do with my clients on my strategy session, where we choose the criteria and then we also choose the documents for them. I'm losing my voice here, people. Okay, so also another mistake is people, choosing the wrong criteria, but also sometimes they don't choose the criteria at all, right? And this is also a mistake. You need to choose the criteria. I'm sorry, I know it's boring and like really unclear, but you have to do it. Then some people are also too shy. A lot of it is cultural. I am from Eastern Europe, where no achievement is ever good enough, and like everything sucks. But if you are from a similar culture, or maybe you were just brought up to be very shy, this is something that might really hinder your success and might cause your visa to be rejected, your application to be rejected, because this isn't a place to be shy. You have to be really proud of your achievements. And I now see that nobody shared their achievements in the chat. So either nobody's, I think people are watching but you're not sharing. You have to share your achievements, you have to talk about them. You have to be able to promote yourself, right? If like nobody will do it for you. I mean, if you hire me, I can promote you for yourself, but normally it's kind of on you, right? So technician, they don't know you, they don't care about you. If you want to get this visa, if you want to be here, you need to work hard for that. You need to promote yourself, you need to be very explicit about your achievements. If you are mentioning an achievement, you should explain why this was amazing, right? You need to give context to that. Also, some people have this mistake of being too vague. So they would have letters of recommendation that talk about them being the best engineer or the best designer, but they don't really give any proof. And I think this comes from a place of not knowing that you need to explain things. And I just wanted to mention here that you do need to explain everything that you mentioned in your application. So you can't just be, oh, I contributed so much to this whatever. You need to give concrete proof of what you did and explanations of what you shipped if you're a coder, like what process you designed if you're a business person. What have you actually done? Concrete examples with numbers, with metrics, right? So if you want to show recognition, or I mean, if you want to show contributions, so I did A and it led to B. Think about this and give examples in your letters of recommendation. So I understand that you might be like, oh, maybe this is maybe I shouldn't share anything. So technician guarantees confidentiality of information. You should respect the NDAs and all that, and kind of this is kind of up to you and your company how much they will allow you to share. Usually, you can always reach out to them and kind of ask them for advice. You can ask the person who is signing your letter for advice on that, but you need to give something, right? You can understand that this process wouldn't really work if nobody was saying anything. Then like everybody would just be like, oh, I'm a great programmer, and no information. This wouldn't make sense. So you can imagine that people who are applying and getting this visa, they're sharing something. So I do recommend you to be concrete, to be very precise about what you mean, because again, if you don't say anything at all that is concrete, if you are just given some vague information. This, to me, it might sound that you are kind of trying to bullshit me a little bit if you are not giving details, right? And you don't want to come off as a person who does that. I know that this might be coming from a good place, but I'm just saying how it looks like from the outside and from a person who doesn't know you. So do share examples of your work and your achievements. This is definitely will put you kind of in the top. Okay, so we have questions about how I can help. I will move towards my services in a bit. There will also be a special offer towards the end for people who watch the webinar. So I do encourage you to stick around until the end, or watch the recording to kind of use it. So choosing the wrong experts is also a big mistake. So for instance, if you choose people who aren't experts in product, again, if you choose somebody who only worked in consultancies, this isn't applicable. If you choose somebody who isn't really a leader, so somebody who is your peer, right? So for instance, if you are a senior engineer and your letters are from senior engineers, this isn't really the best way forward. It can work if like one of your letters is from a senior engineer and you work at Google, right? Because then the bar is so high for people that to get in, that a senior engineer at Google is kind of a leader, but you will still need to explain why they are a leader. But make sure that you choose the right experts. Again, choosing the criteria and the experts is something that I offer within my paid packages. So if you need help with that, I'll be happy to help you out too. And again, not focusing on product experience is a big no-no. So I see rejections for people who focus on their consultancy experience, and this is, for me, it's sad to see that, but this happens very often. So if your experience consists of consultancy work and product work, focus on your product work. And also your experts, they should be talking about your experience in product companies as well. Okay, and now let's go to my mental models for success. So things that helped me get endorsed for this visa from the first try, which I think, which as I found out is not that common. So uh, I will share with you the mental models for free, and you can just go out there and apply them to your own case and get successful, hopefully. So first of all, this is something that my clients, who maybe somebody from my clients is watching, and thank you so much, beautiful souls, for working with me and watching this. So first of all, the thing that I always say is that no achievement is too small. It might sound to you that your achievement is very small, that it's nothing, but also you have to understand that you don't have an objective understanding of yourself, and this is where having somebody else can help you. So this can be me, this can be other coach or lawyer or your friend, but you need to talk to somebody about your achievements, and just tell your friend, for instance, something from your job and see whether they get impressed or not. Like ideally, this should be somebody who understands tech, because if they're non-technical, they will just be impressed by like you, I don't know, understanding HTML. But like somebody who can understand it, and see whether anything that you say sounds interesting to them, right? And try to search for those kind of gems in your experience. This is what I again do during my sessions, and honestly, it's so amazing for me to talk to a person who can be very dismissive about their achievements, and for them, like nothing that they did is impressive. Like it's all regular, right? But then once I start asking them questions, it turns out that like here they made the company $1 million, like there they won an award, and there they kind of mentored somebody and taught somebody to code, and like this is all golden, like this is all material for the application. Just remember that no achievement is too small. Like when I coach people, I ask them to bring me everything, so everything they can think of, and people bring me like a whole like list of things that I ask for, and then together we can decide whether they are um, applicable, whether this is necessary, maybe this is too much or too little. So this is like you start with everything, right? So this brainstorming that we're doing today, and I hope that people aren't really sharing their achievements, but oh, actually somebody shared their achievements. Okay, let me share it. I designed digital and print asset that contributed to a drawing attention of people to the plight of over 500 PET pickers in Lagos through Sesti Marshall projects. What is PET pickers? Can you let us know? This sounds like an amazing achievement, and thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being brave. Um, I actually also switched careers from journalism. Oh, hello, Yulia. So nice to meet you. From journalism to software engineering. Now I'm senior team lead iOS app developer. This is amazing. Very similar to my story, although I kind of made like another career switch, and now I'm in DevRel and not pure engineering. But this is an achievement, and this is something that you should emphasize in your application. So, for instance, like my the fact of my career switch was a big uh, kind of red line that was going through my whole application. And this is something that united a lot of my documents. So a lot of my community work, my book, my public speaking, my YouTube channel, it all kind of was connected to the fact that I switched careers and I was trying to help as many people as possible do the same thing, right? So, for instance, for you, Yulia, maybe it seems like it's normal that you switched careers and you're used to it. For me, like right now, the fact that I switched careers like 5 times, it seems normal, but also it's not really common. A lot of people wouldn't be able to do that, or they choose not to do it. So it's just to show that your life, it seems normal just to you because you're living it. So this parable about fish and the water, about kind of fish swimming in the water and not understanding that there is water around them. This is kind of this parable, I think, in action. Okay, keep sharing the achievements. I think they're very inspiring. Okay, the next one is a big one. So you don't need anyone's permission to apply. So people message me. So people message me a lot on LinkedIn, and I do appreciate it. But do please try to message me topics that are relevant to what I do, which is consulting people on the topic of global talent visa. So people would ask me like, can I apply? Like, should I apply? So the answer is that you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need a coach like me or a fancy lawyer or a big company to tell you that you can apply, right? This visa is permissionless. It costs £456 to apply, right? You can do it from anywhere in the world as long as you have saved up this money. You can apply. If you read the guide, if you listen to my videos, or if you listen to somebody else and it seems to you that you aren't really eligible, then it doesn't really mean that you aren't eligible. So since I'm in this space a lot, so I talk to a lot of people who got the visa. I talk to dozens of people who want to get the visa. So it's kind of constant. And I hear stories that are pretty bizarre, as I said. So people who went to a big consulting firm that helps people with immigration, and they were told you aren't eligible for global talent visa, like you'll never get it. And then this person applies for the visa on their own and they get endorsed, right? Or somebody gets told by somebody like online on a visa forum. Also, like, just caution about Tech Nation visa forum. You can get very harsh and very toxic advice there. So if you look for help there, I would really ask you to be cautious there because the stuff that I've read there is bizarre. So if somebody tells you that you aren't eligible, but they haven't seen your documents and your career, then this is not good advice, right? So like you might ask me now in chat, like I'm this and that, can I apply? Like I won't be able to answer you. The only way for me to answer you is to have a call with you and talk about your experience. And this is not me trying to upsell something. This is how it works, right? So just be very careful with what people tell you, but also just to understand that you don't need anyone's permission to apply. You can prepare the documents on your own. You don't like it's not really kind of a kind of closed system, right? So you can do it, and I do encourage you to try if you're interested. The benefits of this visa are amazing, and your life will be totally different. Okay, so this visa, it's not easy to get. So I think, like, amazingly enough, people still think that it's easy to get. So I get messages from people who say, "I'm not able to get the skilled worker visa for years, so I can just get this one. I have a GitHub profile, so I can get it." I mean, newsflash, no, you can't get it very easily. It's the best visa in a country that, maybe it's not like the top kind of location for people who want to immigrate as tech workers, but it's still a pretty good place to work, right? So it's a competitive space. This visa is pretty hard to get. So the information is out there. So the Tech Nation visa guide is there. My channel is there. If you're interested, I do encourage again to subscribe. This is important kind of for you to get new information that comes out, more up-to-date information. Then also it helps me to see that this is necessary for people. But if you want to do this on your own, you need to take the time to research. It takes a lot of time to research it. I'm not gonna lie. When I was doing it, it took me months to understand this stuff. So the things that I'm telling you now for free on YouTube, it took me months to put this together. The system of thinking, this mental model of this visa, like where it starts, where it ends, like what the hell are criteria, like what is the document, like what is all of this, like how do you sign a document, like all of those things that were very hidden from me and they weren't really available online. So I gathered it from different sources. I had to go to webinars, I had to go to forums, I had to go to Telegram chats, I had to ask people, and like all of this was gathered. So it took me time. So like I didn't pay a consultant or a coach because I didn't see the value, which I now, like being a coach myself, I see the value of having a coach. So if you don't have money, you need to spend time. If you have money, you can pay money to somebody and then they will help you and you will save a lot of time. And if you see a fee from somebody who is charging for the service, you have to understand that it might seem like a lot of money, but also you are just buying yourself your time back, right? And time is the most important resource that we have. You can't make more time, right? So if you're choosing to pay somebody, you should understand that if this is a good coach or a good lawyer, they will save you time and you will get your time back and they will prepare documents for you. You can also kind of find a middle way, which I will talk about in my visa packages. And this is something that I offer, kind of something that is in between. So you don't have to pay like a lot of money to have somebody prepare your documents for you, but also you are not doing this on your own. So this is a middle way ground, which is, I think, a good value for money. And also it allows you to be in more control of the process, but also it helps you save months of research, really months. So I'm not exaggerating it. I just had a strategy session with somebody on Saturday, and I think they said that this saved me so much time. And this is something that I hear all the time, right? So just be realistic about it. Like if you don't have time, you won't be able to do this quickly. You either need to find somebody who will do this for you, or you need to find time or something like this. This is not an easy process. It takes a couple of months to prepare the documents if you're working on them, not full time, but if you're working on them most of the time. So it's like a second job. For me, it was like a second job. So I was working on the documents like almost daily after work, during weekends, and it was like a never-ending process that really did a number on my mental health. So I do encourage you to be realistic and understand what's involved in this. So yeah, luckily you don't have to do this alone. There are people who can help you. There is me. There are people like me. There are people who work in law firms. There are consultants. There are individual coaches. There who can help you prepare your documents. And I work as a UK Global Talent Visa Coach, where I help talented people like you get increase your chances of getting endorsed for the Global Talent Visa. So this is my website, beetlehope.com. You should totally go there. You probably were there if you signed up for that. Hit the subscribe button and leave your email so that you can receive my updates, my blog posts. So on this website, you can see a list of my services, which are very detailed. I made a video explaining each of the services that I offer. So you can go through them. You can check out what works for you, what doesn't. Then the link to this webinar. Then you have testimonials of all of my clients. I mean, not all of them. This is kind of some proportion of people who were kind enough to share reviews publicly, but there will be more there in the near future. Then there is the free tutorial about getting the Global Talent Visa that you should also check out if you're interested in getting it. And then there is the about section, which is a section about me if you would like to learn about me and like who I am. Because I think, again, it's very important that you work with people who you like, and respect, right? So I personally don't want to work with somebody who doesn't respect me, who doesn't like the way I look or talk or, whatever. So check out everything about me and get in touch if this looks like something that, is interesting to you. So a little disclaimer, I'm not an immigration advisor or a solicitor. I'm not associated in any way with Technation. I provide coaching services only for stage 1, for the endorsement stage, for the global talent visa. So if you have any questions about immigration stage 2, I had a couple of questions in the chat about visas, applying for the visa itself. This is not a question that I'm qualified to answer, so please seek help of a registered immigration solicitor. I don't provide any guarantees of you being endorsed for this visa. I do my absolute best to increase your chances of the successful response in the endorsement process. And now I will talk about my services in more detail. Let me know if anything doesn't make sense. If you have any follow-up questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And then we'll have the offer to the participants of this webinar. So yeah, stay tuned. Okay, I had a nice comment that how do I translate this into English? That I don't know, doing a good job. Thank you so much for the comment. Okay, so why should you work with me? So first of all, I know tech. I'm not like many, there are many lawyers who helped with this, but they won't really be experts in tech. So for me, I've worked as a software engineer at Zendesk, as a product engineer at Intercom, and now I work as a developer relations engineer at Intercom, which helps me actually understand both sides of the coin. So I work in the intersection of product engineering, marketing. So my job involves coding, also producing content, communications, community building, working with product managers very closely, with partnerships, with strategical partnerships. So I'm involved in sales like a little bit. So all of this means that I'm able to speak your language, right? So if you're a coder, you can come to me and talk to me about code and I will understand it. If you're a designer, I will understand you as well. If you work in business, I will understand this as well. So this is, I think, one of the big advantages of working with me, as opposed to people who aren't from tech. So also I have unique skills and knowledge. So I am a serial immigrant myself. As you have seen in the beginning, I have lived all over the place. I've always enjoyed filling out application forms. I enjoy collecting. I would collect documents for visa applications. I'm also an ex-editor, so I provide comments on the structure of your documents and also the ways to improve them, to make them more convincing, to increase your chances of getting endorsed. I'm also a book author, which means that I have experience completing really big and ambitious projects. And writing your application is sort of similar to writing a book. I think in many respects, it involves a lot of moving parts, writing a lot of stuff, and also making sure that it all makes sense. So my attitude is that your visa application is your story. It's kind of your biography. So we do need to tell a consistent story. And my experience as a book author really helps here as well. And also my experience as a successful blogger. So I'm successful on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Dev2, and other places. So it means that I understand what it means to be public. So I can give you tips and advice on that. So I can help you find a speaking opportunity. This is mostly done within my premium coaching, but I offer this kind of information for free as well. I can help you increase your chances of getting endorsed if you need to improve your profile. I also help people from a variety of specialties: product managers, software engineers, designers, data analysts, people involved in business, QA engineers as well. So I do help people of various specialties. If your specialty is not in this list, it doesn't mean that I won't be able to help you. It just means that I haven't really worked with anybody with your specific skill set yet. But I don't think that this is actually a requirement. I think a lot of the stuff applies to every specialty out there, really. I also keep informed. So if you're on my YouTube channel, you can see that I also have a lot of live streams that I do every week. So this week I have 2 live streams. One tomorrow and another will happen on Saturday. So I interview people who got endorsed for the global talent visa, which means that I have really a lot of context when it comes to this visa. I keep up to date on all the changes with that. And here is a review of one of my clients who actually got endorsed for this visa just recently. So it talks about how I know a lot of people who have received or been rejected the visa, and this helps me give advice on what works and what doesn't. So I think this is a competitive advantage of my coaching. And yeah, finally, I went through the process myself, right? So I am like you. I am not just helping others. I went through this myself. I understand what it's like. So I provide a lot of moral support and psychological support, and I do care about you. So this is not transactional for me. I work with a lot of people, but still it's very limited, because my time is limited because, as I said, I have a full-time job that I'm also doing on top of this one. So I do care about the people that I help. I'm very kind of personally involved into their stories. And if you work with me, you can really expect a lot of support and a lot of encouragement that you might not get um, if you work with a big company where you're just one of the many hundreds of applicants, and basically you have a caseworker who might or might not reply to your emails very often, and you basically will have no idea like what's happening in some cases, right? So with me, it's very transparent. My clients will confirm that I'm very responsive, and I do try to get back to my clients as quickly as humanly possible. Okay, so now moving on to my services and kind of what you can expect, the cost and what's included. So the first service is my most premium service, which is the premium coaching, which is the white glove service of 8 to 10 weeks of my full individual support, where I will basically help you create your entire application from ideation, from strategy down to submitting. So I'll also help you submit the application on TechNation website if you require help with that. So within this program, we have regular syncs. They can be set in stone kind of in your calendar. This is what people like to do. So we'll have a roadmap that you will have in front of you that will help you understand what you need to do, which steps you need to take to get to the point where you're ready to apply for the visa. We will have regular check-ins. We will have milestones. So we'll agree, that we are not now working on this document, that I'm doing this and you're doing that. So there will be this constant communication channel as well. Yeah, basically, this also includes me helping you with your appeal in case your application gets unsuccessful and gets rejected, which in the world of TechNation happens quite a lot. So around half, I think, of the applications get rejected in total. So this is the kind of service that people choose if they are very pressed for time and they feel that they need kind of full support with this. But also don't be alarmed if this is outside of your budget, because the next services are very much more affordable. So there is the review package where you can come to me if you have already prepared your documents. So for instance, you watch this live stream, you look for the free information, you prepare the documents on your own, in your own time. And then before you contact your experts to get their signatures for the letters of recommendation, I really recommend that you get somebody else to look at your documents. It doesn't have to be me. It's just one of the services that I provide. But it's very important to have somebody else, to have like a second pair of eyes look at your documents. Within my service, I will review your entire case, which is 45 pages of documents. So it's quite a lot. Kind of the cost is connected to the amount of time it takes. So for me, reviewing a package is kind of a day of work or even more. I will suggest feedback on how you can improve your documents. I will point out any mistakes that you have made, any red flags that I see that might get you rejected. Then we'll also have a call, which is, I think, so I say that it's 2 hour. Yeah, it's 2 hour call where we'll talk about your evidences. You can ask me questions whether this works or not, and I can just give you holistic guidance as to what is missing and what you should do to make your application stronger. So this is a review of one of my clients for who got a review package from me. So it mentions how I'm very, provided step-by-step guidance, and how I'm not like other mentors. Okay, so there's also the strategy session, which is, I think, my most popular session. Yes, I think last week I had 4 sessions, or like 3 sessions out of 7 days, which was like really amazing. So a strategy session is, I think, something that I would recommend to everybody who is going to apply for the visa. It doesn't matter if you're applying on your own or you will later seek somebody's help, to review your documents. But this is a session that can really help you understand what is necessary for you to succeed. So within this session, once you book it, you will receive a take-home brainstorming exercise that you will do, that will help you really pull out all of the information from your brain. So we kind of did this today in the live stream a little bit. So this will be much more intense. So there is a special format that this exercise follows. You will do it in your own time. I will review it beforehand. I can also look at the document that you already have prepared. So for instance, if you have already started like putting some evidences together, maybe you have written a letter of recommendation, maybe you have some publications or something, you can still come to me with everything that you have. Then we'll have a 3-hour call. It actually started it started with being a 1-hour call for me. And then I just realized that I'm charging for 1 hour, and then I'm spending like 3 hours with each client. And like I clearly understood that this wasn't like a good value for, it was, I mean, the value for money is there, but it was just not kind of structured well. So it is a 3-hour call. So if you have this session, it's kind of your day is basically done, or your evening is done. So within the session, we'll create a high-level roadmap to your global talent visa. I can also suggest quick wins to increase your chances of success, depending on your particular case. And also you will get a video recording of your call, so you will also of course have a chance to ask me anything that you want about this visa, and this will be questions that are specific to your case, right? So now I see, oh, okay, yeah, now I see a lot of questions in the chat about various things related to people's personal situations, and I won't be able to answer them right now without looking at your documents. So a strategy session is where I can really provide you this guidance. And this is, I think that somebody called this session a classic. Yeah, I can show you some of the reviews here. So it was worth it for one of my clients who got endorsed actually last week, which was pretty exciting. So it mentions that the person gave them 150% of what they hoped for. The homework, they really liked it, and they received a comprehensive roadmap towards their visa at the end, and they managed to stick with it. So this client actually, they just bought the strategy session with me, and then we kept in touch, throughout the process of them preparing the documents, but they actually kind of did the work on their own, and they applied for the visa and they got it. So you can see that very often you just need a little kind of push, and you don't really need somebody else to do everything for you. You can do this much quicker. So for instance, this client, they prepared their documents, I think in, I don't know, like a month or something. It was very quick. So typically an agency or even I won't be able to prepare the documents this quickly. So if you're pressed for time, I do encourage you to consider getting a strategy session and a review. This might be best for it. So here again, a review from somebody who had a strategy session with me, so that it was detailed and very much worth it. So here I'm offering kind of a bundle here. If you want to get a strategy and a review, if you order them upfront, then you can get a good discount on the price of the package. So just have a think about it. It's cheaper to buy a strategy and a review at once if you're interested, but also you can buy them separately. So for instance, if you have documents already and you want to apply for the visa and you want to increase your chances, you can get the review package. If you don't have anything yet, you can get the strategy. And then if you kind of want to get strategy and the review, I think it's also a good idea to bundle them together and make the decision upfront. Also, like you don't have to have obviously like you will have the strategy now and the review package. The review you will have it in 2 months or 3 months. So like you pay now, but you get the service later, which I think is a good tactic in the inflationary times that we're living in. Okay, so these are some of the reviews. You can find all of my reviews on my website, beetlehub.com. You can check out the link to Trustpilot, where all the verified reviews are. So this one I like. Nadia is gorgeous. Thank you so much. Again, strategy session. It's kind of a big one, and honestly, it's one of my favorite sessions that I do. It's just so, um, for me, it's so, it fills me with energy. Although it's very difficult for me, like intellectually, it's very draining. But also, it fills me with energy because we go through. Imagine if you get this session, we will go through your entire career and we will just focus on the best things that you have done, and we will just kind of pick apart your achievements, and the topics will be like, oh, which achievement is greater. So this is a very, I think, uplifting conversation, and I think almost everybody says that they feel encouraged after it and they have this push to apply. So if you feel like you need support from somebody, do get in touch with me. I'll be happy to help you with your strategy. There is also the appeal. So this is an unfortunate situation where you get rejected. So if you apply on your own and you get rejected, you have 28 days to appeal, right? So this is free. I mean, the applying for appeal is free. However, the service is pretty complex because you can imagine that if you get rejected and I have never seen your application before, then I will need to read the 45 pages of the documents on my own, understand them, then understand the rejection that you receive, and then come up with my expert opinion on whether it makes sense for you to apply for rejection or for an appeal, to apply for a new visa, or maybe choose a different visa at all. So this is kind of a costly service, but I've found that reviewing documents take time. So I've tried kind of reviewing documents quickly. Sometimes people can be like, oh, can you do it for free, and like just look at my documents, and I've done it just to see how much time it takes, and it is kind of a big project. So if you want somebody to help you with the rejection, you can look for outside help. I think that at this point, if you applied on your own, you made some mistakes probably, or maybe your experience isn't that relevant. So then it makes sense to consult somebody else, because I see people who get rejected apply on their own again and get rejected again, and you can apply as many times as you wish. But I think at some point it just gets a little bit strange, to keep applying and keep getting rejected, because maybe there is something simple that you can fix in your application. And I was actually recently reviewing somebody's case that got rejected, and it was just so, I don't know, it was just so sad for me to see that they made some mistakes that I always talk about on my strategy sessions, right? So it just, I don't know, you kind of waste, you save money but you waste time. So it's kind of a balancing act, really. And there is also discovery call, which is kind of the introductory version of any kind of communication with me. So we can have a chat, 45-minute chat. We will talk about your career, and we will estimate whether you are eligible for the visa at all. So this is kind of an introductory call. You can find the details of it on my website as well, and you can book the call there, actually. You can book the strategy session there as well. For other kind of more expensive packages, you need to get in touch with me better through LinkedIn. I think the best way to get in touch, and then I will talk about payment information and all of that stuff. So yeah, and you get recordings of all of your calls, which means that you don't have to take notes like crazy. You can just listen to me, and then you can rewatch it as many times as you wish. I think this is a nice little benefit of it. So I don't do so a lot of kind of companies offer um, this eligibility questionnaire where you fill out some questions and they determine whether you're eligible or not. I don't really do that because I see that this kind of approach doesn't really work for every kind of situation. So I do want to talk to a person, because for me this is not transactional. Every your experience is very different from somebody else's, right? So I do need to talk to you personally and understand your experience and whether I will be able to help you or not. You can try kind of determining your eligibility yourself, or you can come to me and ask me what I think. I think especially if you got rejected by other lawyers or experts, might be worth getting some others' advice as well. So yeah, this is kind of an intro version to working with me. So here is an review of one of my clients about the discovery call, and how they were happy with it and how I answered all of their questions and helped them in their case. So this is a special offer for that will be valid only for 72 hours. So I'm offering 5% of all of my visa packages, except for the premium coaching. If you book it until the 14th of January, so until Friday. So basically it's 3 days. So psychologists say that you should, it's easier to make decisions within 72 hours, because afterwards the reluctance kicks in, and it just becomes harder. So yeah, if you're interested, you can DM me with the code webinar 2023, or you can just tell me that you were at the webinar before Friday, and we can talk about booking the session. You don't have to have the session until Friday, obviously. You can just book it, and it will happen later in January, February, or March. So you can just kind of take advantage of the price. And if you're interested in working with me, you can take a few days to think, and get in touch with me. I normally don't offer discounts. So this is, I think, a good opportunity to work with me and save a little bit of money. So I just wanted to make the decision easier for you. Yeah, so you can DM me on LinkedIn. This is my name, Nadia Zhuk. You can Google my name. Just remember it. You can put it into Google. You will see me on LinkedIn and everywhere. This is the best place to get in touch with me. You can also check out my website, as I said, biddlehope.com/talent, where you will see all of the information about the different coaching packages, all the services, the ways that I can help you. And yeah, if you have any questions, again, let me know. And you should always definitely follow me everywhere. Biddlehope is my nickname. This is my name on most social networks. So do get in touch to follow along, to not miss other content related to visa, to global talent visa, and also like other tech related things like DevRel as well. So okay, that's it. That was the content. It's been 2 hours. I cannot believe it. So I can go through some of the questions that I received quite a lot of questions on Slido beforehand, and then there are a lot of questions here in chat. So okay, let me know in the chat whether you are watching this, because I will know that I'm not speaking kind of just to myself. I will start with the chat and go through the questions that are asked today. And then if I don't die, I can go through the questions asked in Slido, but it is kind of intense. I can't believe it's been 2 hours already. Okay. You can also get your question in, but let's try to not repeat the questions, and also let's try to focus on questions that are generic and can help everybody, and not kind of be me answering that it depends. Okay, so let's go through them. Okay. I'm scrolling through the intro. Okay, is it possible for a program manager, digital and crowd, to receive endorsement from the state of Tennessee? This is very confusing. I don't know what state of Tennessee has to do with it. Maybe you can clarify if you are watching, but program managers can be endorsed for this visa, if this was the question. There was a question about the requirements, eligibility, and required documents. I talked through all of them. Let me know if something was unclear, whether I missed something or not. Okay, so what are the chances of getting endorsement from Tennessee for MC and OC based on demonstrated significant contribution? I'm very confused about what is Tennessee. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So you will need to clarify this. Okay. This I wasn't clear whether this was a question. Okay. Do we need to be from MNC companies to get the global talent visa? What is MNC companies? Can you tell me? Or okay, I'm googling. What is MNC company? Multinational corporation. No. You don't have to work for a corporation. You can work for a startup. Totally, a big company, a small company, doesn't matter. It needs to be a product company. That's kind of the gist of it here. Okay, personal statement. I covered briefly. So basically, you need to follow the guidance from Technician. You need to cover all the bullet points there. And your personal statement is your personal story. So this is where you talk about what is your kind of origin story, as in why you are doing what you're doing right now, what your main achievements are, and then what you want to do once you get this visa. So this shouldn't be a recap of your whole career, because this is where your CV comes in, right? So you don't talk about like all of your places of work and your responsibilities. These are just highlights of the biggest thing that you have achieved, and hopefully you can show that how they help you meet the criteria, right? So this is valuable there, but it should mostly be focused on the future and what your impact to the field of digital tech will be, right? So hope this helps. Um, what is the likelihood of obtaining an endorsement from Technation for MC or OC? So MC is mandatory criteria and OC is optional criteria based on a demonstrated substantial business contribution rather than technical expertise or developer experience. So you have to understand that if you're applying as a business candidate, your contributions will be business. It would be strange if somebody was a business applicant and they would be like, oh, here's my code, right? So just think of your business contributions. There is no discrimination based on whether you code or not. Maybe this is the question, like whether it's easier to get endorsement as a coder or not. I don't think so. I don't have any statistics, but my gut feeling is that people get endorsed for various skills. I would actually want more people from business skills side of things to apply, and this is why I'm interviewing so many business applicants on my channel, product managers and people from sales. If you know people from the business side of things who would like to be interviewed, connect me with them. I think I want to spread this message that if don't code, you can still apply for the visa. You can still get it. Is it mandatory for companies to receive an endorsement for this type of work? And are people working in house, such as in banking industry on digital products, eligible to receive endorsement? So I'm not sure about the first part of the question, and maybe you can clarify. But in terms of banking industry, so banking is a little bit complex. I just talked to somebody who wasn't my client, but they received a rejection because they had some experience working in a bank, in a digital bank. But then also, I talked to a lot of people who got endorsed, even though they worked in a digital bank, and this was kind of their entire experience, or most of the experience. So it really depends on how you present your evidence here. So I would need to talk to you kind of individually and advise you on how best to do that. But generally, try to focus on this bank being a digital product, right? So you talk about the app that the bank has, and kind of on the digital aspects of working in tech. Okay, let's go further. What are the requirements for UKRE? I'm not sure what it means. You can maybe clarify. Um, I like this question, not really related to global talent visa, but why would I want to live in the UK? European passport so much more valuable to travel. LOL. Yes. LOL. I would have to compare the strengths of the British passport to European passports. So I, you know, we would need to check like the strength of it and like how it compares. But also here we are talking about people who are interested in coming and working here, and probably they don't really, they are making the decisions based on their own factors. So um, for a lot of people, UK is much more attractive. Oh my god, I'm very tired. Sorry. So for many people, the UK is much more attractive in terms of building a tech career. It's much more attractive for startup founders because the venture capital scene here is very well developed. So in terms of professional opportunities, honestly, when I was preparing for moving from Poland, I compared different countries, and for me, the UK just came up on top. So um, I think that people don't only think about travel as a reason to do this. Okay, so moving on. Moving on. Sorry, taking me a while to scroll. Okay, so I have a side project that I build business around it. Would it be a good base to build the case? So it really depends on the project that you have. So we would need to have to talk individually here. And I it depends on the project, but I find it very difficult to see how you would build an entire case on just one project. So imagine these are up to 45 pages of documents. So it will be strange if they're all about the same project, unless it's a very exciting project. So we can talk about it later. Okay, so there's this question about very clearly about documentation writing guidance. So again, this is not possible within the format of a webinar like this. The guidance I provide within my paid sessions in terms of templates. Somebody asked about templates. Please, please, please be very careful with templates. I mean, there are good templates that you can purchase online or you can find for free, but these are just templates, right? These are just examples. These are just things for inspiration. I get asked this a lot, like, Nadia, can you send me please the templates for all the letters? Like, I don't do templates. The documents that I help with, they are written from scratch, right? They are written for you, for your application. If you copy paste something from online or you just I don't know, use someone else's documents, then you will get rejected because they check documents for plagiarism, right? So, and this is just not good for your karma overall. So, be careful with templates. I like this question. I have no problems with different letters and CV, but there is a problem with publicity. I now have good experience in good companies. What should I do? Run urgently to the next conference to become public. Uh, I mean, conferences are good because this is one of the quickest things that you can do to really significantly boost your profile, right? So, this is something that a lot of people choose to do before they apply for the visa. Or people, start writing articles urgently to do this. However, since I provide non-conventional advice in the space, and I hear a lot of companies saying that you have to get 10 articles published before you apply, or you have to like talk at 3 conferences before you apply, which to me seems bizarre because TechNation doesn't specify how many articles you should have. It doesn't specify that you have to have articles or you have to have a conference talk, right? So for your specific question, I think it's Arthur or not. So for your specific question, the answer is that I've seen with my own eyes a case where an applicant really had very good experience with very good and established companies and like excellent proof of innovations and excellent proof of contributions in the companies, and they didn't have much of an external profile, if at all, right? And they were endorsed. And this, I'm very sure that this is not the only case in the world. So here, I think the question is again, it depends on your case. It depends on the documents that you have. So if the other documents, the letters and kind of the evidences are solid, and you have them and they look great, then one option would be to apply for the visa quickly until the rules change again, and see what happens, right? So you can get the visa from the first try. It's possible. I mean, if you have solid experience, it's possible. Also, you might get rejected, but in the rejection, technician will tell you exactly what is missing. So they will tell you that which criteria you met, which criteria you didn't meet, which is very useful because you will know exactly what's missing. So if they grant you for instance, like you chose the innovation criteria, they grant you innovation. They say, yes, you provided innovation or you provided the contributions to the tech field. But then they will say, oh, an expert with this kind of experience, they should really have more public appearances. They should have more public talks. They should have more books or whatever, they will tell you this, and then you can take this feedback and you can go out there into the world and like apply and talk at all the conferences, and maybe like take 3 months to do all this stuff. And then you kind of gather your documents again, maybe you adjust them, maybe you get like fresher signatures on them, which is I think what I usually recommend, and you apply again, and then you get endorsed, provided that the rules haven't changed in the meantime. So it really depends on your timeline, on your application, because sometimes it feels to me that people start doing this kind of thing with conferences, where they are like, okay, I will talk at one more conference and then I will apply. And then it takes them a year or like 2 years to apply, and then they never do. So yeah, I would just be cautious of this inflation of articles and things like that. So, but watch the space. Like I've seen rumors of requirements kind of being that maybe the requirements might be changing for like how much public profile you should have. So I think there will be further kind of guidance or further rumors in this. But for now, I would just encourage people with good experience and strong cases to apply and see what happens. Okay, so this was question about promise. So can I combine two experience for applying for this visa, web design and front end developer? Yes, definitely. These experiences are connected, so they are within tech. So you would be talking about both of them in your application, probably. So, for instance, if your previous experience was in an unrelated field, so if it was in journalism, as we had one of the guests, so then this wouldn't really be applicable. Although I interviewed somebody on my channel who had experience in journalism, and she was able to tie her experience in journalism sort of to her application, but it wasn't like a main evidence piece. So, in terms of years, of applying for the visa, it really does depend on. Sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, so it depends on how much, how many years you've spent in tech, right? So web design, front end, they are related, so they all go towards your years in tech if you are deciding on promise or talent. Okay, this is an example of a question that is more very specific to a person, and I guess probably asking me to evaluate their eligibility. I think I explained pretty well why I try not to do that, because it's very easy to make to give guidance that isn't really holistic, right? So I call myself a holistic visa coach because I try to look at everything that surrounds you, right? So it's very difficult for me to say something without really talking to you. So I will, don't be offended, but I will skip questions like this in this live stream. Okay, this is a good question. Is the language of publications should it be in English? So it doesn't have to be in English. It can be in any language that they are. So people who apply for this visa, they aren't English speakers, right? So they are not from England, because otherwise they wouldn't need the visa. So I mean, most of the applicants, like obviously there are applicants from the States who have publications in English, but that's beside the point. Like your publications, your public speech, they can be in your own language, they can be local, your local publications. So TechNation accepts evidences like this. You will just need to have a link to the source of the publication. You can expect them to use Google Translate to kind of take a look at it, but also usually I recommend people to screenshot a part of the article, for instance, and provide translation of what it says, so that they understand what they're looking at. But yeah, totally fine. This question about universities, it doesn't matter. Generally, like education doesn't matter for this visa. You can be a high school graduate and get it. So if you are not choosing the academic criteria, obviously. I'm just scrolling, and some of the questions are repeating themselves. So I'm going to find something that I haven't covered. There are a couple of questions about my services. They've all been covered. Again, I had the slide, this one, This is where you can check out all of my services. Some questions about switching from visas from outside the UK. Again, I'm not an immigration solicitor, so I'm skipping the questions related to stage two, which is the immigration stage of it. Okay, so this one is, I'm not sure I understand it. So do you need to have your recommendation letter before applying? So yes, you do need to have all of your documents before you apply. Maybe you can clarify the question. Okay, really nice comments about thanks a lot for your time and valuable suggestions. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Nice comments. Thank you so much. I appreciate your work. Very useful session. Thank you. I'm glad that it was useful. Okay, so how many? This is a good question. How many mandatory evidences can one submit? Is two valid? So again, this is depends on your case so much. So you get the 10 slots, right? How many documents you submit is really up to you. A lot of people choose to submit 10 because you have 10 slots. It's not necessary, but it's not enough to have just one document for each evidence piece. And for me, two evidences for the mandatory sounds weak. So I usually advise people to have four evidence pieces for the mandatory criteria and three per each of the optional ones. Okay, so the formats. I think this is actually a great question. Thank you so much for it. So okay, so when I talk about documents, this is usually a Google Doc where you can write whatever you want. You can paste screenshots. Basically, yeah, you write stuff and you paste screenshots. That's it. Also, you provide links to the original documents. But when you are working with it, just imagine that the documents are printed out or the links die, and make sure that everything that you want to convey is actually included in the document itself, right? So if you have a video, you can have a link to the video, but also you can have a screenshot of the video from YouTube, for instance, with your face that shows the number of views and just shows the importance of it this way. Okay. All the requirements understood. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. I like this. Why do you want to move to the UK? I just love UK. Understandable. Um, this question I think got asked like 3 times. So can a product manager from a product write a letter for me? I'm not sure what the confusion is. I mean, it depends on kind of what your role was and whether they can talk about your achievements in a way that sounds credible. But technically, product managers write letters of recommendation. Usually, it might be like product leader, so maybe somebody higher up the food chain. But like technically, yes. Um, Okay. More thanks. Thank you so much for watching this. I also had questions, a lot of questions asked about this on Slido. So I will try to share my screen now, and you can tell me whether this works or not. I will answer some of those questions, maybe not all of them. Okay, let me share the tab. This one. So those questions were asked before the session. So this one, it's kind of about stage two, but I can answer it. So with the endorsement grant, um, does it mean that you're certainly going to get this visa? These are separate processes, right? So you should kind of, again, second part of the process, consult an immigration solicitor. They're not connected. So, you still need to go through the process of getting the visa. Can a product manager get this visa? Yes. Those questions are very generic and we've covered them. Chances of getting this visa as a dentist, this isn't really applicable. We're talking about endorsement from Tech Nation for tech workers. Concrete steps, we discussed them, I think, in pretty much detail. Consultants, again, I covered it. If you watch this until now, you will hear this answer. But basically, again, it depends. It depends on your particular situation. How can you gauge your certainty that you will be given the endorsement after properly documenting your files? I'm really not sure what it means. So if this was your question, you can clarify. Um, Tier 1 visa after getting endorsement. Question for stage 2. So I'm skipping it. This was a very generic question. Again, we covered this one. Do you need a job in the UK? No, you don't need a job. PhD in software engineering from China. I have about 15 papers in top tier journals as the main author. So you have those papers that can support your academic criteria, but the question is, will you be able to support other criteria, right? So I think this is a specific question, but I wanted to emphasize here that this is a very common, I think, misconception that you can say, I have something, does it mean that I can get the visa? It doesn't work this way. You need to present a strong case that kind of combines all of your documents and shows how you meet the criteria, right? So it's all about the criteria. It's not about you having some specific evidence pieces. Can someone from a finance background have the visa? It really depends what you mean by finance background. So if you work in fintech, for instance, then as a programmer or a product manager, then yes, I think fintech is a very popular field when it comes to this visa. All covered. Oh, I had a question from a DevRel, which is nice since I'm a DevRel now as well. So can you get it if you work in a technical bootcamp or a non-product led company, again, this visa? So according to Technation Guide, if you are a technical candidate working in a non-technical company, you can still be eligible, right? So here you can specialize, you can specify, you can focus on how your bootcamp actually advances the field of digital technology. And this is how you can kind of make a strong case. I also had an interview with a developer advocate on my channel, which you might find interesting and useful in terms of learning which kind of documents they used to be endorsed as a dev advocate, DevRel. Kind of similar thing. You don't need a job to get this visa. Construction, not relevant here. For publications in English, not English, we talked about it as well. So I think this question about junior software developer, I think it's connected to how many years of experience you need to have. It's a difficult question. I think that if you have very little experience, like a year, then the question is whether you have enough content for this visa. Because as I say very often, it's up to 45 pages of documents. Like, what will you talk about there, right? If you have very little experience, it might get tough and weird. So it's not about the years, it's about the achievements. If you had like a year in tech and you have done so much, then, why not? But I think for junior developer, it will be just technically very difficult to show enough leadership, to show enough contributions, to show enough innovation. I think it depends on what your career is like. Okay, volunteering by helping students at the local university with their development classes. Yes, this is a good idea to help your case and help the universe as well. So it's a good example. So for optional criteria number 2, it's a typical kind of example. What technical blogging platform would you suggest to get started with? So I actually blogged on Dev2, so I still have a blog there. I can send the link in the chat. So I had a blog there. This is something that is accepted as well. A lot of people write on HackerNoon, where the post, I think it's actually better. So the posts there are moderated, so you get the benefit of moderation there. And also you have a lot of organic traffic because HackerNoon is visited by 3 million people every month, which is pretty cool. So start with HackerNoon, I think it's a pretty good bet. Just avoid Medium and it'll be fine. Okay, so would projects in public repos on an individual GitHub profile be considered open source if they're not collaborative tasks? So they are technically open source, right? But when you're applying for the visa, again, it's not enough just to have a link to your GitHub profile and show that you have a repo there. You need to show impact. as well. So you need to show that somebody is actually using your repo, or if you're contributing to a repo that is used by others. So you need to show how this is relevant, like how is this advancing the field of digital technology. And depending on which criteria you choose to use the open source contributions for, you will need to emphasize different things basically. So uh, yeah, oh my god, again the question is depends. I hate it. Banks, we covered banks. A researcher, academician. Again, if this is related to tech, then you can look into the academic criteria, the fourth one. Also, if you look on my channel for the word data scientist, you will see an interview with a data scientist who is a researcher. So this will help you, I think, get some ideas for the documents. Um, yep. Hello, I'm from Nigeria. I'm a data analyst. Okay. Cool. This is all that I had on Slido. Let me see whether there are other new documents. Okay, let me stop sharing. Yeah. So, how do you name all your documents? So this is actually a good question. So there is no guidance on that. So just name the documents in the way that makes sense. So um, use common sense when you're doing this. So, for instance, if your documents are named 1, 2, 3, then it doesn't make much sense. So your names should reflect what is inside them, right? And I'm specifically not giving like concrete names because then I'm afraid that people will start calling documents the same way, which will get shady pretty soon. So just call the documents what they are, right? So, for instance, if it's a public speaking document, then it can be called public speaking. Is it possible to share our impact for the business in percentage instead of revenue in money? My company doesn't let me share revenue results because of confidentiality. Yes, this is actually a great question. So, yes, definitely you can use percentages, you can use approximate percentages, you can use very approximate numbers for it. And technician understands that a lot of the things are confidential. You can clarify this. You can say that um, in your letter of recommendations, for instance, that I wish, like, I'm not able to share exact numbers because of confidentiality, but I can guarantee that, Bob's contributions, they led to a 5% increase in our revenue, and this will be good enough. Sometimes you won't even get that in a letter. So sometimes people will be very strict about what they share, and they can be saying vague things like this led to a significant, statistically significant increase in the number of sales. So this might sound weak, but it's better than nothing, right? So this can work as well. So as much as you can share, numbers are great. You need numbers. Like without numbers, this case won't work. It just will look too weak, honestly. And also, I look at so many applications and I see that people use numbers. So you will need to find a way to do that to include them. It's probably one of the most difficult things, but yeah, you have to have them. This is the platform where I blog, so I'm just sharing it here. Um, Okay, so this is a very vague question. So, what does technician look out for evidences? I think I covered most of it in the webinar so far. So it depends on the criteria that you choose, and the question like how can I draft documents to portray what's needed? Like obviously I can't answer this question in this format. So it's very specific to your case and the criteria that you chose. Okay, some questions are very specific to personal situation. Will I need any forms of letters to back up some evidences? Yeah, so letters of recommendation or reference letters are pretty much the most popular way to prove anything in this visa application. So people will have evidence is presented as reference letters supporting their case, and this is a very popular way to prove a criteria. So yeah, again, depends on your case. I see that you have a lot of specific questions. I'll be happy to talk to you about your specific application within any of my sessions. So again, beetlehope.com/talent is the place where you can find more about my services and read up on that. Okay, with that out of the way, I don't think I have any more questions. Again, if you watched until the end, kudos to you. You do have a lot of patience and you're very interested in this process. Again, a little reminder to, if you have questions, you can LinkedIn me. You can DM me on LinkedIn. There is also the special offer that is valid only until Friday, the evening of Friday, this Friday. So DM me if you're interested and you would like to get this discount. If not, I'll be happy to work with you later as well. So, what else? And yes, do please follow me everywhere to show support and just make it more fun. Um, cool. Yeah. Okay. I had one last question. I'll take this one. So, can I write 20 articles with a lot of water? Who and how will be verified that this is a valuable contribution to the community of product managers? This is obviously a very hypothetical question. So, I'll give a hypothetical answer. So, what is the definition of water, right? Like, what is water? And this is very subjective. What is valuable and what is not valuable? So I think I understand the question a little bit. So when we think about articles, we might think that we have to write innovative articles that are just groundbreaking, right? That change the world, but it isn't really a requirement for that. So for instance, as a specialist in product management, you might have some articles that are very specific and share your specific expertise, and then there might be articles that are more generic, that are more soft skills, like that focus on tech but maybe aren't really, that don't really take that much research to write, right? But they can still be valuable. So if you're writing an article that provides value, then I think it's worth publishing. In terms of how this is estimated, usually you will need to show um, statistics about audience. So you will need to show that somebody is reading this article. So this is how impact is measured in terms of content, right? So if you have a lot of views, a lot of likes, a lot of subscribers on your, I don't know, channel or whatever. If you have comments from people saying that this is great, you can always get a screenshot of your comment and you can show it as impact. You can get testimony. If you can get testimonials of people about your work, for instance, somebody retweeting your article on Twitter, you can get a screenshot of the retweet saying that, oh, this is a great article. So all of those things work really well. So yeah, I don't think you have to write 20 articles, honestly, but I think any expert has some articles inside their head that they can share. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. Okay, that's it. Oh my god, that's been 2 hours and 37 minutes of this live stream. I wonder who got through to the end and how you're feeling. I'm very tired. I can hardly speak. I don't know how people stream for hours. It's very hard. Okay, so this was really fun. I hope we all learned something. I hope this was inspiring for you as well to look into more details about this visa, to apply for it on your own with someone's help. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to try your luck and apply and not be scared, really. So some nice comments here. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you spending the time with me. And as I said, the most valuable resource that we have, so I truly cherish it. So yes, I hope we'll stay in touch. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow I have an exciting live stream. I will be having I will be interviewing an engineer from Facebook, Meta, about their journey to the global talent visa. And on Saturday, I'm actually having a live stream where I'll talk about I will talk to somebody who got endorsed for the UK global talent visa, and before that also for Australia global talent visa. And we'll talk about comparisons between the processes and also what is better, the UK or Australia. So if you are torn on kind of where you would like to move, I really recommend that you don't miss those events too. So I'll just drop a link here in the chat so that you can subscribe and turn on the notification for it. Okay, so it's in the chat. So if you are interested, I'll be happy to see you there. Okay, well loaded, and wish you all good luck with your application. Yes, I do. If you apply after this visa and if you get it, just make sure to get in touch, maybe in the comments. I'm always so curious to hear what people make with this information that I produce. So when I was applying on my own, I used a lot of information that was available online, and it was so valuable. So if this helps you, I would be very grateful if you just leave a comment or DM me on LinkedIn. I accept all requests now, so just get in touch. Okay, that's it. I'm ending this now. Thank you again for your time. Wish you a nice evening, and get in touch if you are interested in working with me or you have further questions. Wish you a nice evening. Bye bye.